In an Alexa skills interaction model, utterances are things a user might say to the skill and that will be mapped to an intent handled by the skill's fulfillment code. Slots are placeholders in an utterance in which the user-provided values act as parameters to the intent. For example, consider a skill I've been working on, mouse guests. Among other things, mouse guests can answer questions about wait times for attractions in either Walt Disney World or Disneyland. There are utterances such as, "What is the wait for Haunted Mansion?" or "How long is the line for Jungle Cruise?" These are just two examples of things a user may ask when using mouse guests, and you could probably think of several other ways of asking similar questions. Ultimately, these questions are defined in our skills interaction model as utterances. And here's a couple of utterances similar to the questions you see above. What is the wait for some attraction? How long is the line for some attraction? These are the utterance definitions. And you can probably imagine several other ways of asking these same kinds of questions, but ultimately what we have here are two examples of the kinds of questions a user may ask about wait times. And you see in there, in curly braces, attraction, the word attraction. This is known as a slot. So rather than have multiple questions, multiple utterances, each one for a different attraction in Disneyland or Disney World, what we have defined is a placeholder where the words Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, Pirates of the Caribbean, whatever attraction the user is interested in, gets placed into the slot and passed to the fulfillment code. Now, when it comes to defining slots in your utterances, Amazon has defined a rich collection of types, including for subjects such as cities, movies, book titles, actors, several other subjects like that. Even so, Amazon hasn't created types for all domains, and you'll find yourself needing to create custom types in most skills. For example, a type for theme park attractions is one such domain that requires a custom type. In this video, I'm going to show you how custom types are typically defined. Then I'm going to show you how to define custom types separate from a skill so that they can both be reused and maintained separately from any skill deployment. Let's get started by looking at a greatly simplified form of the mouse guest skill that already has a custom type defined for attractions. Okay, I have already created a skill. It's a very simplified form of the mouse guest skill that I've been working on that simply handles wait times. And in fact, it doesn't even fully, truly handle wait times. It just demonstrates enough of what's necessary to show you how to create and define custom slot types. So, what we have here, before we get to the interaction model, let me just show you that I've started with a simple Hello World example. You even see I've left the Hello World intent handler laying around down here. No big deal. We're not going to use that. It's just I never cleaned it up. But what I have defined is a wait time intent handler, and I've defined it outside of index.js in its own standalone JS file. So here's that intent handler. You can see the whole thing on the screen right now. It has a can handle that says we're handling an intent request, and more specifically, we're handling an intent request for the intent whose name is wait time intent. Now, a lot of stuff going on in here. Long story short, if it doesn't recognize whatever attraction the user asks about, it's going to just simply say, I don't know anything about that attraction. But if it does recognize it, and it'll determine that by whether the resolved value has a entity resolution or ER success match, and if it does recognize it, it's going to extract the attraction name out of the resolved value and use that. Now, if this was real, I would use an API that would provide those wait times. In fact, there's a really great API out there that I'm using right now, and I'll allude to that in maybe some other videos. But for now, just know that if I were using a real API, I would extract the entity ID out of the resolved value and use that as to look up the real wait times from the API. But for now, I'm just generating a random wait time. So basically, I pick a number between 0 and 10, and I multiply that times 5, and that's how long the wait time is. Kind of cheating a little bit, but it's sufficient for what I need to show in this video. Now, if assuming it is able to get a successful resolution and understands what the attraction is, it's going to say the wait for whatever the attraction is however long the wait is in minutes. Okay? That's my intent handler. Now let's have a look at the interaction model where the intent is defined. And so right here, you see we have defined a wait time intent. It has a single slot whose name is attraction and the type is attraction. Now this is the custom type I've defined a little bit lower. If I were using one of the Amazon's built-in types, maybe for cities, Amazon.city would be the type, or if I were using one for movies, it'd be like Amazon.movies, something like that. But here I'm defining my slot to be of type attraction. So it's going to handle these utterances. What is the wait for attraction? How long is the line for attraction? How long is the queue for attraction? How long is the wait for the attraction? And I could probably think of other sample utterances to toss in here, but this is good enough for now. So what about that attraction type? Because that really is the kind of the central theme of this video. What about the attraction type? How is that defined? Well, down here we have defined a custom type under the types array called attraction. It has these values. Now the ID is up to you. You can make up whatever ID you want. If this were a real API that I was hitting against, I might use whatever the real ID is of the attraction in that API, so it's just handy to look up things with. But for our purposes, I've sort of faked it out. It's just attraction 1, attraction 2, attraction 3, and so forth. And I've only defined a handful of attractions at this point. I have Big Thunder Mountain with synonyms, Big Thunder, so the user could simply just say Big Thunder, or they could say how long is the wait for Mine Train, or how long is the wait for Big Thunder Mountain. And in all cases, this resolves to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I have Jungle Cruise, and I have Haunted Mansion, and you can see I have synonyms for those as well. Okay, great. I've already deployed this, and it's ready to try it out. Let's just see how this works. So I'm going to pull over the developer console, and I'm going to try this out. I've already saved one of my test phrases here, so I'm going to go ahead and just click on it. Ask park wait, what is the wait for Jungle Cruise? Now this is not the mouse guess skill. The name of this skill is called park wait. Just for the sake of demonstration, I came up with that kind of silly name, but ask park wait, what is the wait for Jungle Cruise? Let's see what happens.
The wait for Jungle Cruise is 40 minutes.
Great. It seemed to work. Let's ask it another question. How about ask park wait what, or how about we reword it? How long is the line for, and we'll give it a kind of a silly thing, Mine Train. Again, I'm going to draw on the synonym for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
The wait for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is 20 minutes.
All right, let's try one more. Ask park wait, what is the wait for Pirates of the Caribbean?
I don't know anything about that attraction.
Right, so I didn't define a value for that slot type for Pirates of the Caribbean, so it didn't understand it. What if we wanted to update that now? What if I wanted to change the slot type to include Pirates of the Caribbean, maybe to include Splash Mountain or Space Mountain or any of the other attractions that are in Disneyland and Disney World? Well, to do that, I would have to go change my interaction model, change the JSON in the interaction model, add those values, and redeploy the application, redeploy the skill. And that would have to reevaluate the interaction model. And, it's not that that's a hard thing to do, but it would be nice if there was a way that I could kind of externalize that work from the skill itself. Furthermore, what if I'm creating multiple skills that are dealing with different kinds of questions that may be asked, but maybe for this skill I'm going to deal with wait times, and maybe for another skill I might be using the same kind of slot type to maybe answer questions about what the height requirements are for an attraction, or what the perhaps a description of the attraction or something like that. And I wanted to reuse the same slot type across multiple attractions. Well, one thing I could do is just simply copy and paste stuff out of my interaction model for this skill and paste it into the interaction model for another skill. But that's not really the best way to manage these, because now I've duplicated all that slot type work. So rather than do that, let's talk about externalizing the slot type so that we can reuse it and more easily manage it across multiple skills. Okay, here we are back in the interaction model for my skill. And I'm not going to add anything to this. In fact, I'm going to take stuff out of this before we're done. But I want to take what we've already defined for these three attractions and I want to put them somewhere else. So to do that, I am going to find a window over here, and I've already created a Git repository that's going to hold on to my slots, my custom slot types. Now, you could do this as I'm doing it in a Git repository. That's a convenient place to put it. You could put it into an S3 bucket. You could host it anywhere you want to on the internet. So it just has to be reachable from Alexa on the internet, and it only needs to be available when you are updating it. You don't need to have it available all the time. But I chose a GitHub repository. It was a convenient place to put it. And in fact, I already have another custom type in there called hero type that defines a handful of superheroes in there. But I'm going to create a brand new custom type in here, and I'm going to call it attractions type. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and the first thing I'm going to have in there is I'm going to say values. And I think I did that wrong, but we'll come back to it. Actually, you know what? I did do that wrong. This is what I needed to do. I just needed to have a root value. I'm going to come back over here to my interaction model, and I'm going to copy all the values from here. And make sure I get them all. Yes, I need the square brace that's blue. I'm going to cut that out of there for now. Now that's broken for now, but that's okay. We'll fix it in a minute. And there we go. I have just transferred the already defined attraction slot over to my attraction type.json file. And what I'm going to do now, just simply enough, is I'm going to commit it. And I'm going to push it. And apparently something's out of whack. That's okay. Now we should be able to do this. All right, great. So my attractions type should be out there. To prove that to you, I'm going to go to github.com/abuma/slot types. I'm going to pull that over here in a browser, and you can see there's my attractions type just pushed 26 seconds ago. If I open it up, you're going to see in there those three types. Everything looks fine. I don't think I made any mistakes, which would be unusual, but I think we're okay. Great. Now, what the important thing is, I can go to raw and use this URL here to fetch that information if I need it. In fact, it's this URL that I'm going to use to tell Alexa how to fetch those slot types. All right, with that said, I'm going to move this out of the way for now. We'll come back to it in a moment. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create what's called an interaction model catalog. It's easy enough to do using the ASK command line tool. ASK SMAPI, and we're going to say create interaction model catalog, and I have to give it a catalog name. So I'm going to say catalog name equal, maybe we'll call it attractions. Great. I just created a brand new catalog called attractions, and it's given me a catalog ID to work with. This catalog ID is kind of important. We're going to want to remember that, but because it's going to come up here in a minute, so I'm just going to copy it. Just have that in my clipboard ready to go for the next command. And I'm going to say ask SMAPI create interaction model catalog version. See, what's happening is we created the catalog, but now we have to create a version of that catalog. So you can kind of think of this as a kind of a form of version control. Every time I update this catalog, it's going to create a brand new version of that catalog. So I'm going to say create a catalog version, and specifically the catalog ID I'm interested in working with is the one we just created, and I'm going to give it a source URL. Well, the source URL, that's my Git repository, that raw URL that we created from before. So I'm just going to copy that and paste that in there. And then finally, the last thing I do need to tell it is the source type. What kind of source is this? And there's several different ways you can pull sources. I'm just going to say source type URL because that's what I gave it. I gave it a URL to the raw GitHub content. And I'm going to say enter, and it is going to create my catalog. It's going to take a moment. And it's going to say this is an asynchronous operation. Basically it's running in the background. You're going to have to check on it every so often to make sure it's okay. The truth of the matter is, creating catalogs like this usually don't take that long. It's usually done before you even get this message. So I'm going to just paste that command it gave me to check in on it, and you're going to see that, in fact, it succeeded. That version was created. Version 1 was created. Great. Now we're ready to go back to our interaction model and use this. Okay, so here where before my attraction type actually listed out all the values, instead now what I'm going to do is just reference that catalog that I just created. So I'm going to create a new property called value, not values, but value supplier. Value supplier is going to have a type, and that type is going to be catalog value supplier. And it's going to have a value catalog of where the catalog ID is equal to something. I can't remember what it is, so I need to hop back over here and copy that. Looks like it was right here. So let's copy that again. And I'm going to paste it in here. And one other thing, what version are we interested in? Well, we've only created one so far, so I'm going to be interested in version 1. Great, I think that's correct. And so let's go ahead and create that. Let's go ahead and do everything we need to do. We've created the catalog. We've created the catalog version. We've referenced the catalog and version in the interaction model. Really, the only thing left to do is to come back over here and deploy this again. So I've got this in another directory called, where did I put it? Yeah, let's just pop up another window just to make sure we're in the right spot. CD projects, Alexa skills, slot types, not that one, my bad. External park weight, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and say get status. You're going to see that I've edited both index.js as well as enus, my interaction model, since the last time. I'm not sure what I did in lambda.index though. If you'll bear with me, I want to take a quick look. Oh, I just cut out some comments, no big deal. Just going to commit it, add external attraction type. I'm going to push it. Everything pushed cleanly, and now we just have to wait a moment for the interaction model, for the first off for the commit to be recognized by Alexa, to be picked up by the CI system, and for the interaction model to be built. So I'm going to pause for a moment, and we'll come back in just a moment. All right, as you can see, it's already picked up the changes. You can see it's building the model. The quick build is successful, and we're just going to wait for the full build to be successful, and then we can try this out. Shouldn't take much longer. And before it does, I guess I can go ahead and flip over here. We can take a look at the JSON that it's working with here in the browser-based dev console, and you can see that it picked up the changes I made. It is referencing version 1 of that catalog I created. And so I'm going to come over here, back over here to test, and I'm going to ask it again about Jungle Cruise.
The wait for Jungle Cruise is 20 minutes.
It still recognizes Jungle Cruise. How about we ask it another question? Ask park wait, how long is the line for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train?
I don't know anything about that attraction.
All right, it still recognizes Jungle Cruise, and if we tested it further, Haunted Mansion, and Big Thunder Mountain as well. It doesn't recognize Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Space Mountain or Splash Mountain or Pirates of the Caribbean for that matter. It doesn't recognize those because we never defined it, even in our external slot. So let's take a quick look at changing that so that changing our custom slot type so it knows a few more attractions. So I'm going to pull my window out of the way. I'm going to come over here to my attractions type.json, and I'm just going to add another attraction in here. No big deal. Pretty much the same stuff that we did before. I'll give it a new kind of bogus ID, and we'll give it a name or a value of Pirates of the Caribbean. As you recall, that never worked before. And we'll give it a couple of aliases or synonyms. We'll just call it maybe Pirates for short, because some people say, hey, you want to go ride Pirates? How long's the wait for Pirates? That's a perfectly valid question. Or Caribbean Pirates, or the Jack Sparrow ride, or something like that. You know, these are perfectly valid choices. And just for grins and giggles, let's add one more. Of course, there are several attractions in both Disneyland and Disney World, so this could take all day if we wanted to add them all. We're just going to add a couple. And I'm going to say Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And we'll call it, we're going to have a little bit of a conflict because we already called Big Thunder Mountain, we already called it a mine train. Maybe I take that alias out. That's kind of a silly alias there. And maybe we'll use it down here. Mine train. Maybe we also give it another synonym for Seven Dwarfs. And I can't think of too many other ones right now, so that's probably good enough for now. Okay, great. I've just made changes to that. Let's go to my slot types directory. I'm going to git add, git commit, added a few attractions, and I'm going to push it. Great. Now, if I were to go pull that raw GitHub URL over here again, you can see I haven't refreshed it yet. You can see we only had those three, but if I refresh, you see now we have Pirates of the Caribbean and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So this same URL works great. It does everything we need it to do, and so all we need to do is tell Alexa to build another version of our catalog. And to do that, we happen to have that in our history, or maybe it's in this window. We happen to have that in our history. It's this right here. It's the same catalog ID, it's the same URL, it's the same source type, so there's really nothing to do other than just ask it to create a new one. So I'll hit enter. It'll take a moment. And after it's done its thing, we can go check on the status of it. I expect it to already be ready. It says succeeded. Notice the version is now 2. Fantastic. All we need to do to take advantage of this is to go back to our interaction model, have it reference version 2 instead of version 1, and commit it. I'm going to push it. And after a few moments, this will all get picked up, the interaction model will be rebuilt, and we'll be able to try it out with the new slot types, or this new slot type values. So I'm going to pause here and do some post-editing of the video so it won't take that long. See ya on the other side. Alright, as you can see, it's building the model. The quick build just finished up. The full build will be done here in a moment, and we'll be able to try version 2 of our catalog. Should be done any moment now. And here we go. There it is. Build complete. Full build complete. We're ready to test it out. All right, just to prove that we didn't break anything, let's go ahead and ask about the Jungle Cruise one more time.
The wait for Jungle Cruise is 35 minutes.
Fantastic. Now let's ask about one of those new attractions. Ask park wait, how long is the line for Pirates?
The wait for Pirates of the Caribbean is 35 minutes.
Fantastic. It picked up Pirates of the Caribbean this time. Let's ask about Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So ask park wait, what is the wait for let's ask for it by its synonym for mine train.
The wait for 7 dwarfs mine train is 25 minutes.
And it worked. We were able to manage our slot type external to the skill. And if we were to create a brand new skill that wanted to use that exact same slot type, we could still do that by just referencing the catalog in the interaction model the same way we're referencing the catalog here. This also gives us the opportunity, if we need to roll back to a previous version by just changing the version back to version 1. It makes it really easy to do that kind of thing. Now, the only thing that we had to do that seemed to be a little bit more effort than I cared to do is once the interaction model changed, once the custom slot type changed out in GitHub, we did have to come back to our interaction model and our skill and update it to reference a newer version. It's kind of a little bit of a hassle, not a big deal. We still had to deploy a new version of that. I didn't want to do that, but that's what we had to do. Well, there is a way to update that. There is a way to automate that entire process, but I'm going to save that as the subject for another video. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. All right, in this video, I've shown you not only how to create your own custom slot types for your Alexa skill to be handled as parameters to an utterance, but I've also shown you how to define those external to the skill itself. This enables you to reuse them across multiple skills. It makes it easier to manage them in version control and even version them and roll them back in your interaction model by simply changing which version of a catalog you're referencing. And I've alluded to the fact that you can even automate this so that as soon as it detects that there's a new version out there, it'll roll that out as well and pick it up in the interaction model. Although I'm going to save that subject for a completely separate video. But for now, thank you for watching. Check out my books if you're wondering what you can do with Alexa beyond just defining simple interaction skills like we've done here, where we've asked the question and generated a random wait time and used custom slots. There's a lot more to Alexa than that. Check out my books. The one on the right, Build Talking Apps for Alexa, that's the book for you. I've also authored a book on the Spring Framework and Spring Boot called Spring in Action. It is in its 6th edition now. Both of these books are in print. Check them out. Tell your friends. And with that, once again, thank you for watching. Keep tuning in. I'm going to have even more of these videos coming soon.